Merry Christmas, you crunchy creepazoids! Alright, fine. It's October, but fuck you. The calendar does not tell me what fucking movies to watch and review. If I want to watch a Christmas horror movie in the middle of goddamn July, it's gonna happen. Today's festering festive feature is 2017's Mother Krampus. A horrific holiday hazard that actually has nothing to do with Krampus. It's a movie based on another Germanic Christmas deity, Frau Percha. And that's always a great place to start with a movie, lying to the fucking audience before they've even begun watching. So what can we expect from this dishonest derelict? Well, let's open up our stockings to see what Santa has stuffed inside. We have 8 dead bodies, 10 cups blood, 0 naked breasts, tinsel-stitched mouth, surgically implanted Christmas lights, 1 Christmas crucifixion, 2 disembowelings, 1 hanging, 1 heartectomy, 1 burnt face, 1 force choking, cookie cutter removed flesh, roasted gingerbread shaped human meat, knife to the back, axe to the back of the head, knife to the guts, axe to the chest, electric knife to the back, candy cane to the throat, attempted entrail force feeding, human back fat consumption, 1 oven-baked girlfriend force feeding, and 1 bald pussy. It's a sphinx, though, so don't get too excited. We begin with narration.
For the 12 days before the Christmas of 1921.
My true love gave to me a movie that was crappy. Knockoff Saruman here tells the story of December of 1921 when children went missing. Only 1 was ever recovered, but the attack left her mentally unstable and injured beyond saving. Before she died, she simply screamed, "The witch," over and over. Then, in 1992, it happened again. Missing children were found in the woods with slit throats, and some buried. But whomever was responsible was never found. Our current story starts at church. Parents are doing their best to ignore their children who are lured away by an obvious trail of candy. And if there's one thing the children of the 21st century can't resist, it's the great taste of off-brand unlabeled butterscotch hard candies. Junior here tucks into a boiled lolly and ghostly whispers beckon him outside. We see a cloaked figure standing outside of the doorway who offers a candy cane. And the question must be asked, how do you live in a town with a ghastly history of missing/murdered children and not teach your own kids stranger danger? This kid is definitely old enough to learn to not get into a van marked "free puppies." The figure takes the child's hand and pulls him out the door, and the child's screams send the parents running in his direction. Skip ahead to a bright and sunny elementary classroom where the kids are passing notes. A faculty member calls out to Amy to say her mom is there to pick her up, and she is dismissed. Out in the halls, Callum calls out to her and clumsily asks her to be his girlfriend. Immediately, a much older student steps up to shit all over the happy kids. It turns into a physical altercation, and the teacher, who is literally 5 steps away but didn't hear a single word the asshole bully said, punishes both of the boys. So I see the "I'm too busy to do an ounce of investigation to figure out what happened, so we'll just punish the victim as bad as the bully and call it a day" tactic is still alive and well a good 30-ish years after I suffered through it. Fuck you, Mrs. Cumberdale! Outside, Vanessa is smoking in her car, and Amy pops up to say that she saw it happen. Vanessa then swears she quit, just like she promised, and that she keeps her promises. She tells Amy that they're going to Grandpa's for Christmas, but Dad won't be there. She makes excuses about him being busy, but I think we all know the reason. He's getting busy with his new girlfriend. Let's just guess that right now. Cut to Alfie, an old man sitting on his porch and looking over old photos. His phone rings and he heads inside. We see him pour a drink just as Amy and Vanessa come through the door. He offers her the drink and gives her a hug. We then have a heart-to-heart conversation about the recent events, and just as we called, Daddy's spending Christmas with a former student of his. Vanessa asks Alfie how he dealt with his own wife leaving him, and he just gives the non-answer of,
"Life was very different then."
And then Alfie says she and Amy can stay with him as long as they need. Glancing at the newspaper, Vanessa notices the headline about the missing kid from earlier and wonders who could do such a thing. Amy's on the phone with her dad, who immediately blames Vanessa as the reason he won't be there for Christmas, but then relents and says that she can expect him for dinner tomorrow. Mom opens the closet and invites Amy out with the promise that Santa has brought her early Christmas presents. Alfie goes to the front door where a woman named Leslie is standing. He angrily asks what she's doing there, and she says they need to talk. Alfie introduces her without saying her name and rushes her into the other room. Once alone, Alfie angrily reminds her that what they had was left in the past. Leslie spills a bunch of newspaper clippings onto the bed and says that the recent missing child is the fourth one to disappear. She insists that he knows exactly what it means, but we get a lot of sentences missing crucially important nouns and empty statements that probably mean a lot to those involved, but to the audience, it's just empty tension building.
And it's time to face our demons.
Back in the living room, Amy's opening some early gifts, including a stuffed kitty cat. Mom says she knows Amy wanted a real cat, but promises next year when things calm down, she'll get a kitten. And Mom's earlier broken smoking promise shows just how much a promise really means to her. But Amy admits what she really wants is her dad. Leslie reminds Alfie that the curse is real.
And she is back, and her powers are beyond belief.
Yes, folks, that line exists in a movie made in 2017. Alfie finally says the name Molly, and Leslie tells him that there's a gathering happening at the church and begs him to attend. She then promises that once this is over, she'll leave his life once again. Amy is writing a sad letter to Santa Claus asking for her dad to come visit and chucks it out the window. That's when she sees a cloaked individual beckoning her from the trees. A door slams shut, making Amy look away, and when she glances back, the individual is gone. Ooh. Back at school, Callum and the dickhead bully Kevin are left in a room alone. Jesus Christ. Fucking dumbass teachers just can't help but always make these situations worse. Kevin swipes the note he and Amy were passing and plays Keep Away. Suddenly a noise draws their attention to a flimsy tent in the corner that's slapping around. And like stupid fucking children, they insist on checking it out instead of getting an adult to do it for them. The cloaked individual peers out, and Kevin sticks his goddamn face into the opening and is yanked inside. The teacher comes back in to see nothing more than an empty tent. Vanessa asks Alfie about the woman who visited earlier, but he changes the subject pretty quickly and then asks her for a lift tomorrow before trudging off to bed. Next evening, Alfie's dropped off at the church, where he meets with a dozen others, including Leslie. Alfie steps forward to see a bulletin board full of information about missing children. One lady blurts out that Molly is back to punish them, but Alfie assures everyone that she's dead. Another lady says that she actually saw a woman in Molly's black gown, which is absolute proof a dead woman is back to life, right? A third lady asks who this Molly was, and Alfie says she murdered children from the town in 1992 until the group took matters into their own hands. Out in the car, Vanessa gets a call from Wilden, her ex, but cancels the call, much to Amy's disappointment. Vanessa runs inside the church to see what's keeping Grandpa so long. Leslie shows off vague photographs of whom she claims was Molly that appeared in recent sightings near the woods. Then another lady tells us the story of Frau Percha. Not Krampus, Frau Percha. Joe reminds them all that it's just an urban legend and is probably a sick copycat doing the recent crimes. Leslie tells everyone that they lynched Molly because she was the one they thought was responsible for the missing children. A younger lady in the crowd says she had nothing to do with this, but another says her grandmother did, and apparently the curse sticks to the bloodlines. Leslie says the German curse she put on everyone is that one day she would come for their children. While this goes on, we get a sepia-toned flashback to the lynching. So for those keeping score, this has suddenly become a British Nightmare on Elm Street. Oi, don't you fall asleep, you wanker! I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy. Smashing! Joe gets a phone call and excuses himself. It's the babysitter, Jessica, calling to ask him how much longer he'll be. When he hangs up, he runs into Vanessa and makes the joke that she should grab a torch and pitchfork before heading inside, and then he himself heads home. Back at Joe's house, Jessica is trying to put bratty little Tilly to bed, but she insists on a bedtime story. And she just happens to pick the tale of Frau Percha.
And if you say her name, 3 times in front of a mirror. Then she'll come for you.
Well, shit, not only is it Nightmare on Elm Street, but now it's also Candyman.
That's Candyman.
Stop referencing good movies in your shitty movie! Jessica stands Tilly in front of a candlelit mirror, daring her to call out for Frau Percha. The moment she says it for the 3rd time, the candles snuff themselves out. When they flip on the lights, an old witch is standing behind Tilly. She creepily follows them, so they hide in a closet and turn on the brightest fucking goddamn flashlight in existence while making all the noise they can. Suddenly a phone from 1987 rings. Jessica says she has to stay in the closet and sends Tilly to answer it. She opens the door to see if the coast is clear, and Frau Percha pops up from the back of the closet and snatches Jessica. Tilly listens to Jessica's screams and hides in another closet while the phone continues to ring. Jessica's screams are suddenly silent, and Frau Percha opens the door Tilly was hiding behind. Just then, Joe makes it home and is disturbed by what he sees when he approaches the house, though we don't get to see it for ourselves. Instead, we get to see Frau Percha at work, sewing Jessica's mouth shut with tinsel and stuffing her chest full of Christmas lights before stitching her shut again. Well, somebody just jammed a fucking ghost pepper up this movie's bunghole, didn't they? Frau Percha's work is a flashback, and Joe is witnessing the final result, which we finally get to see. Jessica lit up like a Christmas tree, crucified in the front yard. Okay, movie, you have my attention. The group at the church tries to speculate over what to do. Some say that since one of the kids was taken outside of a church, that means that maybe she can't come inside. Others suggest that the woods is where she was put when they killed her, so that's where she'll likely stay. I kind of love how they're just pulling this info right out of their asses, but acting like that's the way it's gonna be. Alfie reminds them that there's only 1 day left until Christmas, so time is running out for Molly. And again, I want to know what he's basing this on. Who the fuck said that the woman they killed can only take children before Christmas Day, other than the old legend that has nothing to do with the woman they killed? Amy's sitting in the car when Frau Percha approaches with a handful of candy. She begins to follow, but Veronica comes back and tells her to get back in the car, completely missing the spooky old witch. Back in the church, Alfie is lamenting what they did, and Leslie tells him that he's a good man and that she never stopped loving him. Ah, Christ. This fucking thing is just going by the numbers now, isn't it? Long story short, Vanessa is Leslie's daughter, and Amy is her granddaughter. Alfie says that nothing's changed and that she is not to be part of his family. Leslie begins to sob, and Alfie says to meet him at the church tomorrow morning. Then Leslie pulls an object from her pocket, apologizes, and hands it to Alfie, who begins to sob and walks away. Once home, Amy finds a wreath on the porch and the number 12 written in blood on the door. Inside, Veronica demands her dad tell her what the hell is going on, and he spills his guts. 25 years ago at Christmas, Molly Fletcher's daughter disappeared. That same year, 4 other children went missing, but the bodies were found in the woods. Rumors started up saying Molly was the killer. All while telling this story, Amy is left scrubbing the blood from the door. Frau Percha shows up with a gorgeous hairless kitty. Aw, it's just like Amy wanted for Christmas! Alfie says the rumors got to the point where the town believed Molly was killing children so she could use their blood for sacrifice. Frau Percha tells Amy that she's there to take the children away from danger and brings the kitty closer. We then hit the flashback portion of Alfie's story where we see a bloodied and beaten old woman being lynched. Molly swears they've all made a mistake and curses them all by summoning Frau Percha to take revenge. But it's not enough to hang Molly. They slash open her belly and spill her guts to the ground. Outside, Amy is petting the kitty when Callum rides up on his bike and calls out to her, and Frau Percha disappears. Callum tells Amy to be careful around strangers, but she swears the old lady is nice, and if she wanted to hurt her, she could have. He then gives her a bouquet of flowers for Christmas, and she gives him her hat, claiming it's not much of a gift. Hey, it's the thought that counts. Callum gives her a peck on the cheek before his Aunt Martha comes running up to take him home. Before going inside, Amy hears a meow and notices the kitty has been left on the porch. Alfie admits to watching Molly hang until dead, and Vanessa can't figure out why he was involved as she is an only child. That's when he blurts out, she had a sister 3 years her senior. She disappeared at 6, and her parents made the choice to never tell Vanessa about her. Vanessa asks if that's why her mom left. And since Callum is obviously a child, we gotta cut back to him and Martha hiking back home. Along the way, they find a cozy little campfire with some odd-looking globs of meat squealing on the grill. Suddenly, Frau Percha attacks Martha and stabs her in the back. And for some reason, that means she starts bleeding from her eye? Frau Percha jams a shiny piece of metal into her shoulder blade. Oh, it's a cookie cutter! And removes a gingerbread-shaped hunk of flesh from her back. She then flips Martha over and cuts open her belly and begins trying to feed her her own entrails. Frau Percha gently puts Callum into a bag and starts roasting the meaty gingerbread men over the fire, savoring a bite before carrying Callum away. Vanessa's getting mommy drunk on the couch while Amy sneaks some milk away for the cat under the guise of leaving it out for Santa. Once the kiddo is gone, Vanessa starts checking the locked cabinet and just happens to find the key in the open drawer attached to it. She finds a box and takes it outside to discover a police badge and some old photographs of her sister. Meanwhile, Alfie looks over the metal ring he got from Leslie. Next morning, Vanessa wakes up to see her dad setting something up outside the living room windows. He tells her he needs another lift to the church. Amy makes a mad dash out to the door to a fancy car parked in the driveway. Oh look, it's Daddy! And he's brought his jailbait with him. Wow, what a fucking asshole move, Dad. Did you honestly think bringing your 14-year-old girlfriend to your former in-laws' Christmas party was the right move here? Vanessa and Alfie stare daggers at him until Amy asks if they can all have a nice Christmas for her. Sure, kid, any excuse to get more bodies for the meat grinder is A-okay with me. But the best part is Wilden copping attitude when Vanessa tells him she has to drive Alfie into town. Yeah, that's kind of the drawback to showing up uninvited. People might have other shit to do when you get there. Debbie tries to do a gift exchange with Amy, but she scuttles off to take care of the cat, and Debbie takes it as a personal slight. So basically, the movie wastes no time making damn sure we hate them from the get-go. At the church, Alfie asks if Vanessa will go in with him, and she agrees. Inside, he laments about how he's the only one left. I honestly think like 40% of this movie's dialogue is just sentence fragments and mystery speak, and it's fucking irritating as shit. He starts moving around the missing children corkboards, and Vanessa notices the string tying her photo to Leslie.
Dad, is she my mum?
We then get a look at the new missing kids, and it's in the shape of a Christmas star. What, you didn't think that was a pentagram, did you? Back at the house, Amy has joined her dad and her stepsister, Daddy's girlfriend, for Christmas dinner. Debbie tries to be a good guest, but everyone's being, well...
snooty. Snooty? Snotty. Snotty.
Towards her. Alfie shushes her while staring out the window. Amy asks why they can't get along and that she just wants her family back and storms off. Debbie does the same and I guess Christmas is canceled. Wilden sits next to Vanessa and starts boo-hoo-hooing about how he didn't want to leave, but Vanessa swears all he's doing is rubbing his new life in her face. And now that she's good and pissed off and everything's gone to shit, it's time to confront her own dad about the lies he's been telling her. But while she's pissing and moaning, no one's paying attention to Frau Percha sneaking up on Debbie and stabbing her in the throat with a candy cane. Wilden grabs her and runs inside while Frau Percha draws a symbol in blood on the front door. Alfie assures everyone she can't get in, but that seems to be little comfort to the panicked group. A ghostly voice calls out for Amy, and she sees the cat outside and opens the door for it. Alfie grabs Amy just in time as Frau Percha was about to pounce. And now comes one of the weirdest parts of the movie that should have come with an explanation, but doesn't get one. Alfie goes into the attic and opens a trunk that's full of weapons wrapped in Christmas lights. He brings them to the family and says,
Take these to light your fend off the witch.
And I'm taking a time out here. Grandpa seems to be a lot more knowledgeable about the situation than he really has any right to be. At no fucking point has Alfie admitted that there's anything supernatural going on. All he's admitted to is lynching a woman that was responsible for a bunch of murdered children. 25 years go by, and not once did the curse come into effect. Suddenly, kids start going missing, and Grandpa immediately jumps to a supernatural explanation. Fine, but what has he done this entire movie to make you think he's an expert on supernatural forces he has never seen in his goddamn life? You cannot just throw out some items and pretend they follow the rules when the rules have not been established. And if they have, they've done a piss-poor job of it. I mean, if Christmas lights fend off the witch, then why the fuck did she have no problem with them when she's sewing them into the fucking babysitter? Debbie's bleeding and wheezing in the kitchen, and Wilden doesn't notice Frau approach from behind. Everyone else is crouching in the dark with their ghetto lightsabers until Frau shows up there too. And the Dollar Tree raver gear does dick all to stop her from knocking Grandpa to the ground. She points menacingly at Victoria, and Wilden clocks the old hag. Unfortunately, Frau Perch's got a steel jaw and shakes it off. She grabs Wilden by the throat, lifts him up, and, I don't know, touches him with acid hands. Frau then turns into fucking Palpatine and force chokes Vanessa until Grandpa gets involved. But she flips it around on him and takes his axe and goes upstairs to find Amy, who's hiding under the bed. Frau chops the wardrobe to pieces, and Amy sneaks out the door. Debbie decides the best thing for her stabbed throat is to get up and walk around. She makes it to the kitchen and flings a pot of water at Frau. Bitch, this ain't the Wizard of Oz. Finally, in the middle of all the shitstorm, Grandpa decides it's time to tell the fucking truth. But just like all other dialogue in this goddamn movie, he's got to speak in broken sentence fragments and riddles, so Victoria decides her time is better spent looking for her daughter. And I'm thinking my time would be better spent taking a shit. In the kitchen, Debbie's getting trussed up like a Christmas turkey. Oh, excuse me. With the apple in her mouth, it's more like a Christmas ham. Frau finds the electric knife and starts slicing up the main course, placing tender morsels into a baking pan. Oh, it's the chef's prerogative to sample the meal during prep, right? Then suddenly Frau is on the porch crawling towards Grandpa, but we're not allowed to see anything here because it's time for an unearned tender moment with the shithead parents.
I never stopped loving you.
Oh, fuck you! He whines like a bitch because everything was too much, but promises to be the best husband ever. And I really want to see everyone except Amy get gutted in this fucking movie now because my patience has officially hit E on the gauge. Wilden heads to the kitchen to check on Debbie, but she's not responding. The oven timer goes off and Wilden opens it for some reason. I mean, why the fuck would you look in the oven? What could possibly be in there that's more important than the carved girlfriend sitting on the table? Also, don't use a fucking oven mitt or anything. Just grab the blazing hot metal rack with your bare hands. Amy screams for Dad to look behind him, and Frau pops up to strangle Wilden with those pretty Christmas lights that were supposed to
Fend off the witch.
Now tied to the chair, Frau force feeds bits of his girlfriend's back fat to him while he sputters and retches. Frau approaches Amy, who's hiding behind the Christmas tree, until...
Get away from her, you witch.
Mom chucks a present at Frau and looks shocked that it didn't do a goddamn thing. Frau force opens the curtains to show she's got Grandpa tied to a chair on the porch, and Vanessa takes Amy to the other room. Wilden wakes up with a bad taste in his mouth, grabs the axe, and stares at it. Frau, using her amazing teleportation abilities, appears right behind him. Then Wilden tries opening the door like a lunatic. Vanessa leans up against it, but Frau reaches through the window and grabs Amy. Hearing his daughter's screams, Wilden just starts swinging at the door. Just then, Leslie drives up and unties Alfie. We cut back to Wilden, who's looking over his now blood-covered axe, and he sees blood seeping beneath the door. Turns out the idiot put the axe clear through the door and into Vanessa's skull. So either the door is made out of room temperature butter, or the axe is made from mithril and gives a +5 against human skulls. Frau Percha approaches again and force grabs his heart through his chest. So, I guess we're just done with the fun Christmas-themed murder at this point, huh? Vanessa's thrashing around on the floor, and even though she took an axe to the back of the head, she's spitting up blood and bleeding from the eyes for whatever fucking reason. Amy begs her to stay with her, but her bloody sputtering eventually stops. The door creepily opens and Frau comes inside. Amy begs for mercy, and Frau says she's there to save her. She places her hands on her face, and a white light flashes us to the past. In the black and white, we see Leslie walking a young girl through the woods and burying her dead body. Then we see her orchestrating the smear campaign against an innocent Molly. But the real kicker is watching Alfie burying his own daughter and taking her bracelet as a keepsake, which is the metal ring from before. He then tells Leslie that he had to kill their daughter to keep Leslie's secret because they wouldn't be a suspect if one of their own children was killed too. Never mind the fucking fact that Molly's kid was the first to be killed and that didn't stop any of the town's assholes from believing she was guilty. But how fucking stupid is this? Killing your own kid and then burying them immediately in your own yard? No, don't leave her corpse in a park or someplace where a witness might find it. Nothing at all strange about how all the other kids were found murdered, but yours just disappeared without a trace and you don't even rally a search party. Jesus fucking Christ, did any person involved with this movie ask a single goddamn question about how little sense any of the script makes? Back in now time, Leslie insists that Alfie run away with her. He approaches Amy to take her away from them, but she confronts them with the truth. Alfie tries to grab her up, but is stabbed by a knife that Amy was carrying. Leslie then has a resting bitch face competition with Frau, who puts an axe in her chest. She watches in delight and laughs as Leslie falls dead to the ground. She then calls to Amy and reaches out her hand. Alfie desperately tries to crawl to her rescue, but only coughs and cries out, "Baby!" as his granddaughter is led into the woods. Jump to a dark room and Amy is lit by a single candle while a pair of hands strokes her hair. Frau then says, "He comes," before an unknown cloaked figure approaches from behind. So that's Mother Krampus, a movie that has absolutely nothing to do with the story of Krampus. The original title was supposed to be The Curse of Frau Percha, but apparently it made more marketing sense to lie to the customers and cash in on the fact that Krampus was a household name by the time this movie came out. Seriously, Krampus was already in something like 7 movies, including the 2015 release starring Adam Scott and Toni Collette. And this is a major pet peeve of mine. Movie studios who think so little of the customer that they don't mind tricking them out of their money. Obviously, Krampus is more marketable than Frau Percha, as it's a recognizable name. But that still doesn't change the fact that the only thing this has in common with Krampus is the Christmas holiday setting between the two monsters. And in that sense, they might as well have just called it Mother Gremlins or Mother Christmas Vacation 2 Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure. I mean, really. Fuck any and all movie studio employees who think the winning move is to lie to the audience to get some cash before everyone catches on to the lie. Pretty much the only thing I liked about this one was the gore. When it was on, it was on. And I liked the Christmas-themed deaths, particularly the lore-accurate death of the babysitter who was cut open and stuffed with Christmas lights. In the actual story of Frau Percha, she would judge children based on how hard they had worked during the year. Any child who didn't pass the test would be cut open and have their guts removed, and the hole would be stuffed with rocks and straw. But I also found the cookie-cutter flesh gingerbread men to be a nice addition as well. Overall, I just found this movie to be slow, tiring, poorly written, poorly acted, and ultimately a wasted opportunity. I mean, with all the blood and guts flying around, it didn't take too long to realize that Frau Percha wasn't killing any of the kids that were disappearing. So the twist ending of her rescuing the children wasn't at all satisfying. Honestly, Amy being led into the woods while her grandpa helplessly watched should have been the ending. But then they had to give it an extra 83 seconds that has a creepy, supernatural pedophile feel to it all, with Frau literally grooming Amy before he comes to tell the little girl that she's home now. I just think leaving it ambiguous would have been better than ending it with teasing the sequel, Father Epstein. So with that crappy Christmas cracker in the compost, I'm on to the next cinematic sludge ball. So until I greet you all again from the island of misfit toys, this is your old pal Sugar Pants. See you in your dreams.
No, go on, go! Go on and take your lousy, crappy turkey, chicken, whatever the fuck it is with